Hello, Tribe, and all you beautiful Web3 degens. Recently, the founders of Tribe Quokka got together to discuss the beginnings of our NFT project. TribeCast Episode 1 was the beginning of that story. Episode 2 is a continuation of that discussion. So sit back and relax as me and the founders reminisce about the early days of Tribe Quokka and the launching of our NFT project. There's so much to talk about in those first few months, right? Besides getting to Quokka New Year's, where we announced, showed the origin story video, did our Quokka New Year celebration, and then kicked off basically the beginning of 2022. And everything was working towards April 1st when we were going to be launching our Genesis Tribe Quokka NFT collection, right? April Fool's Day. And so much occurred between January 1st and April 1st to get everything off the ground, right? Developing the website. We did a training in real life event at Haka Labs where we brought in a bunch of people and gave them hands-on education on how to get set up, how to be prepared to actually mint the NFTs. We did a deposit for all of our OG community members, 50% down, and then we, based on their wallet address, they got 50% off of the mint when they went to mint on April Fool's Day. So those first few months were crazy, man. We were running around like chickens with our heads cut off. If you remember, Chris, originally, the idea was that we were going to be refunding everyone their deposit after the mint. And after we were doing Venmo and Cash App, and then we were doing, I think we did ACH at one point. I think, was it your idea that you said, why are we even doing the return of the deposit? Why don't we switch it up and just do a 50% down payment basically when they went to mint? It was so much simpler. I was worried about it at the beginning because I thought, since we had already socialized that we were going to be refunding, for them now to have this different method, I was a little hesitant at first, but it ended up being the best decision we could have ever made.
Yeah, I mean, the difficulty in accepting payment at all for what we were doing, was very hard. I mean, for people to put the deposits down, the amount of effort that it took to get all that done, and to have to do all of that again to accomplish really the same thing as just giving them 50% off of the mint. It was difficult enough that we now got to teach everybody to do the Ethereum and fund their wallets and everything else if we had to also handle sending the money back. I mean, it was difficult with Venmo, Cash App. I mean, obviously this was all new. Cryptocurrency, NFTs, all of these places were just experiencing this for the first time. So I myself lost the access to use Venmo for the rest of my life. I've tried to rectify that to no avail. I can never use Venmo in my life ever again because I help people, Venmo me, I'll get you the Ethereum and all that. And eventually, they just flagged me and nobody will talk to me. So there's nothing I could do about it, even though it was all legitimate.
Yeah, so. I think it was because everybody was putting in like a note saying something like NFT
NFTs.
or crypto,
NFTs,
like
Ethereum.
It had to be flagged at some point.
Yeah.
But you remember for like 90 days, we weren't able to get any of that money out. They flagged your account, they froze it, and then it was 90 days before we were able to withdraw.
Yeah, well, those are different accounts. Yeah, mine got frozen because I was helping people buy Ethereum. Our company account got frozen because they didn't understand what was going on, that it was all legitimate, and that these, they flagged it and held our money for, I think, 90 days, and then finally released it when they didn't have one complaint. So yeah, that was a good decision. I think that people just had to do the Ethereum for half of the mint.
Which was also good because we got access to their Ethereum wallets, or at least we knew of them. So we were able to determine whether or not they had Ethereum in that wallet prior to the Genesis mint. And that last week, we were going through every wallet to see if they had enough ETH to mint, and then reaching out to them if they didn't to see if they needed any additional help.
It was definitely a war room type material going through those last days. And it just shows how much people trusted us to hold their hand through that whole process. I mean, we were calling ladies that were like 80 years old. Hey, we have your deposit. You just have to hit the mint button. We ran from like teenagers to like 80-year-olds.
We put in so much extra effort to try to make sure people didn't lose their deposit. We contacted everybody over and over and over again. We were persistent to try to help them. We wanted them to mint and get their chance at getting the NFTs.
We had Peter, our developer, write that web application where we imported all the wallet addresses. We were able to see who had zeroed out wallets, what the amounts were, so that you could have those conversations.
I actually believe I created a spreadsheet that used a plugin that actually went and got their balances. But we can say Peter did that.
Yeah, that's right. Was that you? That was you that did that? Okay. Yeah. My bad. You get the credit now.
Chris, the one guy had like millions and millions of dollars, right? Remember you had to go to his house?
Yeah, I went to his house. Yeah.
He didn't have that though.
He was tough.
Yeah. I mean, we were going to people's houses, man. I went to 2 or 3 different people's houses to help them. I mean, it was just crazy, the stuff that we were doing, going above and beyond just to make it happen.
Yeah, and I think we actually returned a couple of people's deposits that never minted for whatever reason.
You know, anyone that asked for their deposit back, even though they weren't supposed to get their deposit back, we gave them their deposit back.
Yeah, just because we didn't, want any ill will or bad blood or none of that.
There's probably still people waiting for Quokkas in the mail.
Snail mail.
Do it.
But shortly after we had the initial launch party, we filmed the origin story at the fireplace and the book and everything else to tell the story, in more detail. So we got together and did that, and I thought that also was the day that the idea of skits was born.
It absolutely was. Up until about a week before we did that origin story video, we were just going to do a storybook, a cartoon book where the pages would flip. If you look in that video, there's illustrations. Those illustrations were just going to be part of a book. We were never going to do a skit. That was something that was decided probably maybe 4 or 5 days before we went down to your house in LBI and filmed.
Yeah, we always make it hard on ourselves and decide we have to.
That was probably one of the funnest nights, though, man.
Yeah. We have to do this thing. This must be done in the next 4 days, even though we just thought of it, and it has to happen.
It had to be done before Quokka New Year's when we were going to announce.
Right, because we have to put extra pressure on ourselves, and we decide that we're going to have to do it for New Year's because it's Quokka New Year's because we have that idea. But this was the theme. This was the theme all the way through this whole project, was us creating urgency for us and us having to really frantically perform. We had to get it done no matter what it was, whether it was figuring out how the money was going to happen, figuring out how to program it all, putting due dates. April 1st has to be that. We created all this incredible urgency and pressure on ourselves to do all these things.
Yeah, but if we didn't, do you think we would have actually met those deadlines?
No.
My favorite filming was the second skit when the Bored Ape Wannabe came out and did his piece. And we're talking about Bouchard, Butumbo. That was probably one of the funniest nights I think we ever had in the early on. Like, because Boosh didn't go down to LBI. He was like out of town or something. So he couldn't participate in the origin story video, but he was like, the main character in the second one. It was so freaking funny, man. And that whole night being down in that basement, watching Boosh doing a take after another take after another take. It was like 2 lines.
I was freezing cold and I was in the same spot, in the same position on that stupid beanbag for a good hour with just crap all over me. I had Spam, I had cheese curls, SpaghettiOs, the whole thing. It was
He kept throwing more stuff at me.
But the whole the heater and banging on the heater and screaming, "Mom!" A lot of that was right, off the cuff, because obviously we needed a heater because we were freezing to death while we were filming. But then the heater became a central, part of the skit.
Yeah.
I just looked, 160,000 views to date.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not
Yeah.
bad. Definitely funny. But
Well,
and then
if
you
you're
figure we filmed that down there, in just 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, and then we had to relocate and go to the studio at Miles IT there and film the second part where you snap and boom, you guys are on a beach. But we did it. We got it all filmed in probably 4 or 5 hours.
Did we did that back to back? We left the basement and went there.
Back
to
I
back.
don't remember. That's crazy.
Back
The
to
only
back.
problem was I didn't lose weight then. I was supposed to lose weight when Brett snapped his fingers. I was supposed to lose weight. I shaved, but I didn't lose the weight.
Bruce, we've gone over this. Skinny isn't funny.
I know. I don't like it.
You can refilm the second part now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that took us all the way up until Genesis Mint. The midnight was amazing. We had hundreds of people at Haka Labs. We had NBC there filming. We were on the news during the mint. We minted out in 57 minutes or how many ever minutes it was. The website went down at one point because I think we had thousands of people pinging the website.
We hit
had to reload
so
it.
5,000.
People were freaking out.
We crossed 5,000. So what we came to find out later was the server that we were on could only handle 5,000 concurrent users. We surpassed that between all the traffic of our community, and then we were doing all that marketing.
You're skipping over the whitelist, the pre-mint party.
Yep, that was the day before, right?
Yeah, that was the 31st, right, of March, and that was like jam packed with people. And I remember just sitting along the wall, and I saw Aaron talking to these 3 guys, and I was just like listening in, and it was this crew that came down from Connecticut together, and they had worked out this plan where they were going to mint like 6 of them, and then they were just all going to share them together, and they were all going to go into like one wallet. And I just remember looking at Aaron, and he's just looking at them, and he's like, how close are you? How close are you guys? Because I don't know that this is the best idea. Like, maybe you should just, decide before you get them that 2 and 2 and 2 are going to go into the wallets, because, you never know what you're going to get. And, this could like kind of like tear you guys apart and like all this kind of stuff. And I just thought that was the funniest conversation. And they were like, no, we'll be fine. But that crew is still with us.
Yeah, that's W Cats is one of them. It's the 3-headed monster from Connecticut.
Yeah.
They drove down and brought a bunch of pizzas. So we minted out, and then the following week, all of the founders drove down in a Winnebago to Charleston to hang out on Chris's catamaran for a few days and plan the next steps. And basically, it was us creating a video of all of the IRL events that we had planned for the first 4 or 5 months up until Quokka Cup that we were planning on doing in October. So we spent those few days together. We checked out the location in Charleston where we were going to be doing the Quokka Cup.
On the way down in the RV, it was at a time when people were, making mistakes online and getting scammed.
Yeah.
And so it was all happening real time while we were in the RV on 95 South. Boosh is driving, and we're making videos and to explain to everybody how to be careful and explain how the scams really are working versus what was being reported by users. Because, users, they're not going to report that they made a mistake, but we have to actually teach everybody to not make mistakes. So we need to illustrate that they were making mistakes.
Let me sum that up a little bit better. Is basically what we did is we took every scenario that someone said that they got hacked or whatever on that Google Chromebook and tried the same steps that they did to show where the breakdown was.
So they clicked on a link and basically approved the transaction for their wallet to get drained.
Or typed in their seed phrase or whatever.
Yeah.
They shared their information essentially, because these people were making elaborate pages that looked like legitimate pages and were asking them to do things that made sense. But it was always, all the way through, you had educated people correctly, and they actually fell for the exact things that you had already educated them on. But what we had to prove is that was what was actually happening, because what was floating around out there was very scary, like actual hacking. And none of that was actually, it was all social engineering that was being done, not actual hacking.
Yeah. And you remember that guy, one of the scammers was in our Discord pretending that he was one of the good guys and he was going to try to help us. Remember, we tried to get him on a Zoom call. As soon as he found out we were recording it, he wouldn't get on it.
Yeah, he was in like Malaysia. I think it was Malaysia. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
crazy.
funny. I remember that. Holy smokes.
But it just goes to show like the lengths that we went to in service to our community, where you had the hundreds and thousands at that time, actually thousands at that time, other projects. I feel like none of the founders ever even gave a shit. It was like, hey, at your own risk. They had their rules that you had to accept when you joined their Discord. And one of the rules was, you're at your own risk. Don't click on any links that aren't official, blah, blah, blah. And here we are with the education, like Chris, what you just explained, going the lengths to recreate the actual, mishap that the user had, user error. And I also remember too, in a few circumstances where we had some of our close community members where they did have a hack, and let's say they lost their Quokka, which is, thankfully, that's what it was. These weren't, experienced crypto users where they had, a few thousand of crypto and NFTs from multiple projects where they lost it all. Thankfully, all they lost was just like that one or however many Quokkas. But we were giving away free Quokkas, if you remember. We even went to that extreme to where it was like, hey, listen, this is a one-time thing only. We had less than a half a dozen people that I think it actually happened to, but we all coughed up a Quokka and gave those that lost out, a Quokka from our collection, man.
I mean, the whole big thing about the NFTs, the Quokkas, the vision, all of that was to build a community. So, for us, it's standing, we felt it's, or at least I think we all discussed it, standing behind the community, doing the right thing for them.
Yeah, I think Chris always said he had the dream of a newspaper coming out and says, like, group gets whole town rich. Like, I think the whole goal was to like everyone.
No, that wasn't me. There's no way.
Cut that out. Cut that out.
No, everyone rising together. Everyone like
a rising tide lifts all ships. I think that was what Brett used to say.
I thought they were going to make like a bronze statue outside of Vaughan Hole of Dick Doofus.
Well, the truth is that at the time that we launched, it was a frenzy about NFTs. We created something unique that no one else did, and it worked, and everything occurred the way we thought it should. And the company, Haka Labs, did bring in about $1.4 million in this original mint of the Genesis, and then it was off to do all the things that we wanted to do to make this a viable community. So we utilized those funds to run the in real life events, to start doing the other projects that we successfully did release.
This wasn't a bunch of Web3, natives that were learning about our project. This was a community that we already had of in real life friends and family. And our idea was we were going to bring them into the world of Web3 because it was very early on. There was a lot of opportunity. We wanted to educate them on the possibilities and give them an opportunity to potentially take advantage of that situation. So, from day one, we did go above and beyond for our community because these were our friends and family. They weren't strangers. All of these people we personally knew, or somebody we personally knew them. From the very beginning, we knew we were going to have X amount of dollars after the Genesis mint. And we all were in agreement that we were going to invest that money back into the project so that when the kids came out, we would have additional funds, and those funds would move us into the future. Now, obviously, when crypto winter hit in May and June of 2022, all of that changed, but we didn't change our plans. We told everybody this is what we were going to do. We're going to continue to do it, and hopefully things turn around before the kids mint, and that didn't happen as well. So now we're going into third quarter of 2022. We didn't sell out the kids. You know, the sentiment in the space had gone to basically zero. A lot of our community members weren't as excited as they were in the very beginning, because if you remember, a month after we minted, the cheapest Quokka you could buy on the floor was about $1,700, and they minted it for $200. So there were quite a few people in our community that made money in the early on. But if you stuck around and didn't sell into July and August, that floor price went down, just because every floor price went down at that point. It wasn't just us.
We did do everything we set out to do, and we did get the kids done. And I don't know if at that time, I don't think, I mean, now we're using hindsight. I mean, of course, I mean, our Ethereum went down, 80%. Our floor price went down 80%. Everything went down 80%. And then we launched the kids, and no one would, well, some people bought the kids, but it didn't sell out. But we did everything. And in hindsight, yes, we would have pulled back. But there was no pulling back at the time that we did all this. We needed to do what we said we were going to do, and we did it. And we invested every single dollar into doing the things that we set out to do.
Yeah, the only thing that we didn't do that we had said we were going to do was the battle birds. And the battle birds were really, our intention was they were going to be our first 3D full body NFT for the metaverse. And by the time that came around, the Bored Apes, the other side, they hadn't gone live. They were still doing these, test runs. There was really nothing that we could do to deploy the battle birds in a way where there would be utility that came with them. So we decided to kind of push that off. And even to this day, the other side is still not in a full functioning, open to the general public. So a lot of our predictions didn't actually play out the way we had first envisioned them.
Well, and neither did the predictions and the efforts of the other NFT projects, including the whole metaverse thing and all of that. I mean, the metaverse is something that no one talks about anymore. I mean, it just went away, and the battle birds were going to be in the metaverse and 3D and all that. It wasn't without us investing in the battle birds, though, and sidekicks. We actually did do development. We got ready to do it, but the whole industry changed. So we invested, every dollar that we brought in, into what we were set out to do. And with the decrease of Ethereum, and then the decrease of interest in NFTs, but on top of that was the removal of creator fees from different platforms like OpenSea and others. In the beginning of this whole thing, it was all sweat equity. All of us invested an incredible amount of time, overnights, every night, doing our regular jobs, but then investing an incredible amount of sweat. And we built this business, and Haka Labs, in the first mint, April 1st, brought in $1.4 million, and then utilized that money to build out everything that we set out to do, have the community events and everything else. And in the end, we spent every single dollar while everything else was dropping down. And so today, the people on this call, the investors on this call, the owners of Haka Labs have put their own money into this. No one has ever reaped a dollar from this business. So it has been an investment now of our own personal funds.
A labor of love. But we do see a light at the end of the tunnel. We are, Chris has said this from the very beginning. A lot of times, the businesses that succeed are the ones that don't quit early on. You know, the founders that give up because they don't see a light at the end of the tunnel, if they just would have kept grinding and doing what they were doing and waiting for their next opportunity, they could have made it. But for whatever reason, they decided to stop. And I don't think there is a bone in any of our bodies that says that we are going to stop until this is successful. So I just, put it all out on the table. Didn't make a dime, invested our own money, and we're here to stay. That's it.
Yeah, and our biggest asset is our community. It's all the people that are involved, and we have to wait and see what is that right opportunity. We have done a lot of things recently, getting ready for something special, yet it's not the right time to launch what we've already talked about, and it may be time to pivot. And we're talking about that as well. So making sure that we stay in business with our own money right now, put in, and we'll probably have to put more in personally to run. But all of us want to make sure that we stay in business so the community is still together, and figure out what is the right opportunity for us and what is the right timing for us. And I don't know that we know exactly what that is yet.
Well, what that is in terms of, because none of us have a crystal ball, we can't predict, when the NFT part of Web3 is on its next bull. But we've been working, all of us have invested a lot of time. Of course, Chris, you mentioned the financial commitment that we've each individually have made, but just the sweat equity again into building the next stage of technology that we're going to be rolling out once we feel the market is ready to be able to handle what we're going to release, not just to our own community, but the rest of the entire space, and how that's going to have, just an incredible impact on the entire, on all the NFT projects, not just our own. So, more to come on that in the near future. But, I think that's going to be something very exciting that we're going to be able to start talking about to our community, hopefully in the months to come, again, depending on where the market is at that time.